Good evening and welcome to the brand new Bengaluru International Airport, which is absolutely stunning. In tonight's video, we'll be flying with Lufthansa aboard their latest business class product, aboard the Airbus A350. A few weeks ago on the channel, I featured the outgoing product, and it's fair to say it needed updating. So tonight, we're going to do it together. So come along, let's get into it. Now, I must admit that Bengaluru was somewhere that I'd never really considered. I'd be transiting. More on that transit experience a little bit later on. For now, we're arriving into the airport around midnight or so. There was still, however, plenty of flights going out, so I got to see it fully open with everything operational, so that was really very nice. Arriving in, of course, the lounge was very much top of my first priority list. We were, of course, travelling in the business class this evening, so lounge access, thankfully, was included as part of the ticket. The lounge that evening was to be a shared lounge experience with other airlines. It was the 080 lounge. I've had fairly average experiences with these types of lounges in other areas of the world, so I was a little bit skeptical, but let's jump on in and see what it's like. Well, I must say, this lounge looks fairly fancy, schmancy. Can't wait to check it out. Doors just opened. Let's go. Now, in reality, I needn't have been skeptical. From the moment that those lift doors opened, I was treated to one of the best airline lounges, frankly, in business class I've ever seen. I loved the relaxing ambience. It was great how everything was put together. They had these separate little bar areas. I would say at this stage, this was a lounge that people could buy themselves into, but only certain areas of the lounge were fully accessible with the business class ticket. Thank goodness we had that. On that occasion, that evening, it meant that I got to see absolutely everything that was included. Alrighty, so that's me settled in this absolutely fabulous lounge. I've never seen anything quite like it. The sheer amount of use of wood, it's almost like being in some kind of tropical rainforest. I think that's the vibe they've gone for. It's absolutely fantastic. Quick word on the transit experience here in India. I don't get the sense that many people do it. As I stepped off the flight, there was a guy calling out for passengers for the Munich flight. I was the only one that he was waiting for. You're then guided through immigration and security. It's quite analog, quite paper-based. They go through and sign lots of paperwork. It doesn't really seem the done thing. It's not your typical transit experience through the Middle East, for example, with Emirates or Qatar Airways. I think it was busier, particularly with all of the paperwork that's involved. It's something that I potentially wouldn't recommend, but hey, this has been an absolutely unbelievable experience tonight, and to come to this brand new terminal, I mean, my goodness, it's absolutely stunning. I wish we had something, frankly, just like this in the UK. It's wonderful. It really is. For now, I'm going to enjoy about 90 so minutes more longer in the lounge, probably get ahead and grab a shower. We'll check out those together, a little bit more of the lounge, perhaps the bar, and then from there, we're then going to be boarding onto the Lufthansa flight. Stay tuned. All of the little details also were well catered for in the lounge. I like the inclusion of the departure boards at various different areas, and you'll notice there, even though I did that piece to camera at a high top table, there was even charging sockets fully available. All of the seating areas looked power enabled, and that's always something that I really appreciate. I, of course, couldn't come as far as India without trying that fantastic cuisine. They had a number of live cooking stations. They had more of an a la carte sit-down restaurant exclusive for business class passengers as well. The food all looked so amazing, and I did have a little bit of curry before heading for my shower. Those who have been following along to the channel for some time will know just how high a value I put on taking a shower. Now, I was actually, as part of this flight, I'm transiting on a separate flight from Bangkok, and after having been on the road for a number of hours, there's nothing like freshening up, particularly before getting on to an overnight flight. These facilities, frankly, just like the rest of the lounge, are absolutely stunning, so can't wait to jump in, freshen up, and then we'll head down to board. To say is an absolutely breathtaking night here in India. As I headed out to the boarding gates, there was this wonderful outside area where you've got this huge great courtyard. The temperature is set to 22 degrees. The time is just after 100 in the morning, but my goodness, it's absolutely stunning. This will have to be a place that I indeed come back to. For now, we're going to be boarding on the aircraft. Just for doing so, I should say, if this is your first time tuning into the channel, I've got so much more similar content from the likes of Lufthansa and so many other big major European carriers such as British Airways, Virgin Atlantic and many more. So if this sort of content is your thing, hit that subscribe button and YouTube will help you keep fully up to date with all of the new content as it goes live on a weekly basis. For now, I'm starting to flag a little bit, getting ever so slightly tired, so let's jump on board. I can't stress how nice this outside area was that evening. When you travel long haul, you really are cooped up for such long periods of time, so to be able to enjoy a little bit of time outside before heading on to the next flight was a very nice feature indeed. Without further ado, we're now heading down that jet bridge and boarding onto the Airbus A350, where I was greeted with a sign that confirmed that this evening we'll be checking out the brand new business class in Allegris. This aircraft and indeed cabin was so new that as I came through where the first class will be, they just had a row of economy seats essentially holding that space. That evening I didn't know whether it was because the seats weren't booked or just because many of them weren't fully operational yet, but it was only around 50% or so capacity and some of the seats didn't seem to be fully operational at that time. I really did feel as though I was stepping onto the aircraft straight from the factory. It was great to be checking it out for the first time, and my goodness, was this design absolutely brilliant. I'll say it now, for the first time, I'll probably mention it lots throughout the video. I think this is the world's best business class seat right now. Waiting for passengers at the seats was a blanket, a pillow, a pair of slippers, and also an amenity kit. So everything you needed to get you through an overnight flight. I love this wavy design of the seats. Throughout the video, I'll go and sit and visit many of the seats within the cabin. As the flight was so quiet, it gave me the opportunity to do that. So do stay tuned throughout and we'll check out a good variety of number of seats. Getting seated into my seat that evening, the space was absolutely palatial. Alrighty, so that's us on board. It's the brand new Allegris business class tonight, so I think that calls for a celebration. Cheers, here's to what's going to be an interesting ride. It was a very nice little glass to get started. That almost took me by surprise, having champagne quite that late into the evening. What I really liked about the seat, in addition to everything that we've covered just already, is the ease of charging and also the controls. Everything was in really nice, easy reach. And how large is that? It's so often the case nowadays that you do have a little storage compartment up to your side. I've never seen anything quite this large. This is where the headset was for the entertainment system, the amenity kit that we'll check out a little bit later on, and also a bottle of water. The little light above it, that was touch sensitive to operate. You also had some quick seat controls down to your side, but most of the controls for the seats we'll check out later were all operable using that screen next to you. I did have a bit of a laugh when checking out the table. The function worked perfectly normally, as you've seen many tables before, but it was the size of it that really took me by surprise. It kept wheeling out and out and out. Despite that, it was actually much firmer than you'd expect for a table that extends quite that far, but I've never seen anything quite so large, not even in the first class. Sadly, there wasn't much of a view to report outside on the windows. It was a fairly humid night in southern India, so sadly an awful lot of humidity and condensation. Whilst we do taxi out, apologies for a little bit of camera shake here whilst we go across the taxiway, but I was keen to show you this screen. This is where you control all of the major settings for the suite, be it the seating configuration or indeed the lighting. What I really liked as part of this seat's design was the fact that you could firm up the cushions. You had a ton of different adjustment options, but really the absolute best feature was the fact that you could heat or cool the seat. I have never seen this before on an aircraft, and my goodness, was that cooling feature so useful when sleeping. Like you so often see on the Airbus A350s, this one has all of the external cameras. It doesn't translate quite so well down my camera, but particularly from that tail cam, all of the definition looked really very good indeed. So without further ado, as I say, as we take to the skies, I'll check out some more seats, so do stay tuned for that. But I'll now bring down the music volume and we'll enjoy this fantastic takeoff aboard the Airbus A350 bound for Munich. I must say, of all of the aircraft currently in production, the sound of the A350 when it takes off, for me personally, is completely unmatched. Those engines sound really very good indeed. As I got up into the flight, relaxation was the main call of the day. Little screen down to the side even had a number of relaxation playlists. I thought that was a nice little touch after the takeoff. Now, as part of our further cabin tour, one aspect that I was quite keen to go out for just as soon as I found the cooling feature on the seat and tried that for the very first time was to have a little bit of a walk around the cabin, as the seats right at the very front near the bulkheads were the ones most interesting to me. These were known as the business suites, and they have far more privacy than the standard style of seat that I had. They also seem to have a larger TV screen at the front. I quite like those seats next to the window. If you get the ones slightly more inbound, you get a lovely cocooned area. If you were sharing this perhaps with a partner, I think that would be really very special indeed. I did think these were a cut above, and if you can book them due to status, or if you're able to pay a little bit more, I would indeed consider them. As I say, they do get more privacy. The bathrooms themselves, they weren't super big, but actually I really liked how these were put together. They were modern, they were very clean, and when I think back to those bathrooms aboard that Airbus A330 that I did with Lufthansa just a few weeks ago in the business class, it really was chalk and cheese. They really did look exactly where you'd expect a business class bathroom to be. As I got back to the seat, I was keen to check out the amenity kit. These were all done with Lufthansa through Porsche Design. As someone who's a really big petrol head, I think this is an aspect that always gets me a little bit excited. In terms of the kit itself, well, it had the essentials. You'd have seen there were a few more amenities in the bathroom as well, so I don't think you'll go without on a Lufthansa flight. If you did for a moment, however, compare this to a Qatar Airways or a Emirates amenity kit, yeah, a little bit behind, hasn't got all the nice fancy lotions and potions, so this is perhaps an area they can do a little bit better on. However, it had all of the essentials. With it being such a late departure out of Bengaluru, frankly, I couldn't wait to get that seat down into the sleeping position, try it out for the first time, and get a few hours rest before the main service, which was to be a breakfast on this flight, and I promise we'll check that one out together. With Lufthansa, in terms of the service, you're kind of just left to it. You get on and do your own thing. I'll make a few comments about the service a little bit later into the flight. As for the bed itself, well, it was every bit as good as it looked. Huge in terms of space, and with that seat cooling mode on, I was incredibly comfortable and couldn't have been happier to have spent a few hours to get finally some rest. So all settled in, time for bed. Well, a very good morning and welcome to those sunny skies above the Greek islands. I must admit, as I woke up, I'd had such a good sleep. I was a little bit worried that I'd missed the breakfast service. Thankfully, it was still 40 or so minutes out. Whilst we take a moment to wait for breakfast, let's take a second to check out the entertainment. In short, I thought this was really good. I definitely wouldn't have been short of 1 or 2 bits of content to have watched. I thought the headset was of decent quality. Only downside that I would say is that despite the fact that this is a modern aircraft and it was fully Wi-Fi enabled, at no point that I checked during the flight, sadly, did the Wi-Fi work. I think in this day and age, that's something that they really need to look at. I did, however, put that down again to more teething issues that the aircraft was probably having, given how new it was in service. Whilst I waited for my breakfast to come around, I did take a moment to enjoy a glass of orange juice and also a cup of tea before the food eventually arrived. One aspect that I thought was damn weird, I would have to say, is that the mugs didn't have a handle. This led for quite an awkward kind of experience trying to drink it. You can see there, I almost burnt my hand. I was struggling a little bit with trying to look awake and alive, ready for the breakfast service. It was at the end of a very long trip. One thing I would say when it comes to food and beverages with Lufthansa is how beautiful their menus look. I think they're really nicely put together. As I already mentioned, the breakfast was indeed the main service on that particular flight, and there was a good number of options to enjoy. In terms of said options, those were split between a savoury and also a sweeter option. On that morning, it was the sweeter option that I opted for. For me, it was to be the blueberry and chocolate chip pancakes. So without further ado, let's jump into those and see exactly what they're like. And here we go then, food wonderfully presented as it came along. They then had a selection of fresh breads and also croissants, and I was filming this little segment. Here arrived my choice of jams and also Nutella. It was great to see that being provided on the flight. I'll be fine, thank you so much. Righty, pancake time. They indeed went down very well indeed. One aspect that I did notice with Lufthansa, as again, like before, little touches on the cutlery. I do think it's the little things that make the biggest difference. In terms of the breakfast offering, right the way through from the pancakes, they're absolutely boiling hot as you hovered your hand above them, right the way through to those oats there, tasted very, very good. As we then made our way a little bit closer through towards Munich, I took the opportunity to check out the aisle seat. Now, this one had an awful lot less privacy, but due to the very wavy designs of the seats, many of them actually do have access to windows. This one, not so much, just because of the offsetting of the windows, but other ones did actually have a window in that slot, so I thought this was absolutely genius design. I then took the opportunity to once again go back and check out that business suite right at the front of the cabin behind where I was seated. This one even had wireless charging, and my goodness, did they look fantastic for a business class product. I really did think they looked wonderful, and I would love to see the first class the moment that becomes available, because if it's even better than that, my goodness, will it be good. Now, with us coming up from the south into Munich, I was very much hoping it would be a clear day over the Alps, and I lucked out massively, so I'll give you a moment to sit back and enjoy what a fantastic scene it was before I then wrap up and give you my final thoughts on the brand new Lufthansa business class. I must say, Munich is my favourite city in Europe for very good reason. The fact that it's so nicely surrounded by the Alps with all of the gorgeous scenery that's entailed within it makes it that bit more special for me. It's also the car capital, I think, of the world as well, so that makes, of course, a big difference. As for my thoughts on Lufthansa, well, in terms of the seat, they're unchanged. I honestly believe that this is the best business class seat in the world just now by quite a margin. In terms of some of the softer aspects, I think this is an area that they could do better. The food and drinks are decent. The service is a little bit indifferent. It's highly efficient, as you'd expect with Lufthansa, but some of the crew, they lack that friendliness. I don't think hospitality is their particularly strong suit. If Lufthansa wanted to right now, they could be the best business class airline in the world. No question of doubt about it. They've got the hard product to do it. Whether they'll do it or not, well, I think that's a slightly different question. There isn't quite so much competition in Europe. There's no reason for them to push quite to those dizzying heights like Qatar Airways and others, but if they wanted to do it, they definitely could. Overall, would I fly Lufthansa again? Yeah, you bet. I got this flight for a really very cheap fare as part of an overall code-sharing flight, so I would definitely do it again. In terms of some of the other aspects with Lufthansa, in general, their lounges are a little bit functional at best, but overall, as this is a brand new seat, I would love to hear your thoughts and indeed your comments below, so don't be shy. Pop your comments in and I'll respond, I promise, to every single one. If you are thinking about a European carrier for business class, I've recently reviewed the likes of KLM, British Airways and Air France, so I'll pop one of those reviews in the bottom left now for you to check out and indeed contrast. Otherwise, all that's left for me to say is to thank you all so much for watching today's video. I've got loads more upcoming on the channel, so don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you in another one real soon.